Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome back to the latest episode of Musical Musings. We air every Wednesday at 1 p.m. This program is broadcast from Rajamachan University of Technology, Pranakon. We bring this program to you in two parts. In our first part, I will introduce a song to you, and we will talk about the band or the singer that produces it, and we'll discuss its main themes, what it's all about. We will then listen to the song, and in the second part, we will analyze the lyrics. We will look especially at anything that might be a little bit difficult to understand. Difficult vocabulary, slang, idioms, things like that. Anything that, might be a little bit hard to understand. Then, we will get to the news and the latest updates from the university as usual.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Gray. I'm your host for Musical Musings. I am an American English teacher here at Rajamachan University of Technology, Pranakon. I've been here for several years, and we are doing this program, Musical Musings, for our 32nd week here today. And today's song will be The House of the Rising Sun. It's a song sung by the Animals. The Animals is a British band coming from the city of Newcastle in England. That's Newcastle. They were formed in the early 1960s. Anyone who listens to this program knows that we like to do a lot of older bands. We do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I know that older music is popular here in Thailand. For example, most Thai people know Take Me Home, Country Roads. That's a song from the 1970s. That's about 50 years old. And most Thai people know that. So a lot of Thai people like older American or Western music. This song actually isn't American, it's British. Comes from a British band, The Animals. And the second reason is because some of the younger people here in Thailand actually don't know a lot of those older groups. So I like to introduce some new groups, new bands, new singers to you on this program. So we like to do some older bands. Last week, we did one of the more recent ones we've ever done. And even that band, formed around 2000, a little bit later, I think, if I remember correctly, from our last episode. We did a band called Mofro, who formed in the early 2000s. Sorry, I almost said 1990s. I believe they did not form until the 2000s, but very early in the 2000s. So even they are like 20 years old. And that's the most recent band we've done. So this week, we're going to do the Animals. They formed in the early 1960s. It's hard to even put an exact date on them because when they called themselves the Animals and when the various band members got together, different band members kind of grouped up together at different times. And even the origin of the name, the Animals, is debated. I think we kind of know from the lead singer because he has said where it came from. He should know. He's the lead singer, so that's probably the right answer. And basically it comes from the nickname of one of the members who was called Animal. So that's where they got the name. But there are other stories about how they got their name. Apparently, their stage performances were so crazy that they were like wild animals up there, and so they got the name the Animals. But the lead singer said no, it's just the nickname of one of the members, called the Animal or Animal. So the band is called the Animals. And again, when they exactly formed, I mean, because band members came and went, and they didn't adopt the name until a little later, and it's a little hard to say. But it was probably around 1962. It was definitely the early 1960s. I mean, that's for sure, because we know, like, when the lead singer, whose name is Eric Burden, we know when he started. And he started like around 1960, 61, 62, somewhere in there. So we know when he started. So we know it wasn't before 1960. It was probably around 1962 when you could say that the Animals began. But again, they had a lot of people come and go, added a lot, got rid of a lot. So, and then their name just kind of came naturally. So, when were they exactly the Animals? And when was that the main core of the band that became popular? Hard to say. Earliest is probably 1962. Might have been a little bit later than that. So this is a band basically from the early 1960s. That's probably the best way to put it. All right, so this is an interesting band because this song we're going to do today, The House of the Rising Sun, is probably their only really big hit. That's probably it. But they did have a lot of kind of smaller hits, so they were still very popular. In fact, they actually got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 1994, they were inducted. So, yeah, they are a really popular band. Hall of Fame. Made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, in case you're not familiar with that, is actually not that old. So, to get inducted in 1994 is pretty early. So, like one of the most famous bands ever. Which is a little weird because they didn't have a lot of really big hits. They were a little more popular in Britain, and because I am personally American, yes, they were probably more popular than I think of them as being popular, because back in their own country, they were a little more popular. A lot of British bands were just as popular in America as they were back in Britain, because we had a lot of very popular British bands in America. Bands like The Who, Pink Floyd. I mean, we had obviously the Beatles. Anyone that knows about music knows about the Beatles. All of those bands were just as popular in America as they were back in Britain. But the Animals were probably a little more popular back in their home country. So when I say that they weren't really that popular, I might be a little bit biased with my American opinion because they were a little more popular back in their home country. But for my opinion, it's very interesting because they weren't that popular. This is really their only really big song. Again, they had some other minor hits. So I'm not saying this was it. This is all they're known for. Nothing else. No. They had about, I believe it was about 3 or 4 other pretty big songs. Pretty good hits that they're known for. Besides this one. So I said 3 or 4. So you add this one in, it's about 4 or 5. So that's not too bad. That's not too bad. About having about 5 big hits. But this one, again, is really the only one that's really well known in America. In fact, a lot of other people performed this song as well because it was so popular. In fact, I'm not even sure they wrote this song. They may have taken it from someone else and just been the most popular band to perform it. I didn't really look up the history of the song, but I know so many people have performed it that I would not be surprised if they were not the first. So this may have been performed by other people. Okay, so again, they formed in the early 1960s. The main singer is Eric Burdon. If you watch the video, it depends on how you're viewing this, whether or not you will watch the video. You will see him in the video, and you will probably be surprised at how he sings based on how he looks. He looks like just kind of a very, very normal person. A lot of these big rock singers, they kind of look weird. They have the crazy long hair. They're just, they look the part. They look like what they're doing. This guy doesn't. No. Eric Burdon just looks like me or anyone else. Looks like a normal person. So it's kind of surprising when you see the video because he sings this song pretty incredibly. It's a very good, that's why it became so popular. He's an incredible singer for this song. Okay, so again, the Animals entered into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994. They kind of went away. They came back a couple times, once in the 80s, once in the 90s. They're still sort of around, but it's really variations on the band. The lead singer, he's still alive, even though he's very old now. And he does still perform even at times. He's 82 years old, so he's an old man now. Still performs sometimes. So they're kind of still around, but of course not really in their original form. I already told you they had a lot of personnel changes, and so now you can imagine at this point some of their original members may have died, others have retired, things like that. So it's not really the original Animals, but they're still around in some form today. All right, so let's talk about the song. The song is really pretty simple, so we're pretty much just going to jump into it. Basically, it's just about the guy's life. It's a guy singing about his life, and he kind of sings about his... He kind of sings about... he kind of sings about his family. Like, for example, he talks about his father... And his father is really not very good. And so he sings about his mother, who's kind of there to hold the family together. Doesn't sing about his mother too much. It's more about his father and how his father wasn't very good. So it's kind of about, starting out with a pretty rough life. This is a guy... very much a man, that kind of old-fashioned way we think of men, strong. So he wants to look up to his father. His father's not very good, so this is a guy trying to find his own way in the world. That's what this song is about. It's about a guy trying to find his way in the world. And it sings a lot about his family. Especially his mother and father. A lot of the first part is about his father. Again, a little bit is about his mother. There's a line in here which says, "Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done." But he doesn't really talk about his mother so much. It's more about his father and about himself. But there's a little bit there about his mother. Okay. And again, it's about trying to live his life. So he's trying to make a better life. So this is one of these songs. We've had a lot of these on this program. where it's kind of seems like a sad song. It's negative. It's about his bad father. Sad, 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 sad. But it's actually meant to be a positive song. It's about him trying to improve his life. Even at the very end of the song, it sounds sad. The last couple of lines are about, it's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God, I know I'm one. So he's saying, I'm a poor boy. So he's poor, struggled, difficult life. But it's about moving forward. It's about making a better life. That's why we have that line, like I told you before, where it says, "Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done." So it's trying to give advice. Make a better life for yourself. Do better. Okay, so that's what the song is about. It's a song that sounds really sad and negative, but it's actually a positive song. It's about doing better than he did. It's about making a better life for yourself. Being successful. Rising above all of these negative things that you're going to hear in the song. All right, so let's get into the song. As you know, for anyone that's listened to us before, if you're on YouTube, you know we cannot embed the video here because of copyright reasons. So you will see a link in the upper right for this video. You can click on that, and then when the video is over, just click back here to come back to this video where we will go over the lyrics. And for everyone else, you should be able to listen just fine. Okay, let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome back. All right, so this song, again, is about living a better life. It sounds like a very negative song because it's talking about all the problems. But it's actually a positive song because it's about getting over those problems and living a better life. So let's go through these lyrics. All right, we start out. There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun. All right, so New Orleans is a city in America. It's in the South, so there is a house in New Orleans. And they call it the rising sun. All right. So it's not even entirely clear what that means. There's a couple of meanings behind the rising sun. But if you take the song literally, they're calling the house the rising sun. So, okay. We don't really know that that's necessarily what it means because, again, there's many meanings behind this. But the name of the song is The House of the Rising Sun. So we can just think of the rising sun when they talk about that. They're talking about this house in New Orleans. Okay. So the next line is, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God, I know I'm one. So this house is the ruin of many a poor boy. Okay, so if you were to research the House of the Rising Sun, what is that? What does that mean? You'll find that it might be like a home, like a place where there are prostitutes or gambling or other bad things going on. So this is a bad house. Rising sun sounds nice, right? Sounds like the sun's coming up. It's bright and sunny. It's actually a bad place. So this house, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's a bad house. So it's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and Lord, I know I'm one. So when it says, actually it says, in God, I know I'm one. I think they say Lord in another line. I know other versions of the song will say Lord. Lord and God are the same thing. So that's why some other versions say that. I think this version says God. So what it's saying when it says, and God, I know I'm one, it says, I know I'm one of those people. In other words, he's one of the poor boys who has been at the house of the rising sun. So he is someone who is, falling into this bad world. Gambling, prostitutes, whatever, alcohol, all these bad things. I mean, some of those things aren't bad all the time. Sometimes it's nice to have a little alcohol. You're drinking with your friends, You go out with your friends, go to a bar, have a beer, have a whiskey, whatever. In some countries, even where prostitution is legal, even that's not necessarily bad. But if you're doing it all the time, that's bad. That's bad. And so that's what he's saying here, is that, he is just always involved in this. So, God, I know I'm one. He's one of these poor boys at this house of the rising sun, where it's all bad things. All right, so then we get to the next line. My mother was a tailor. She sewed my new blue jeans. My father was a gambling man down in New Orleans. Okay, so his mother was a tailor. She sewed my new blue jeans. So you can think of this like a very hard-working mother. I mean, how many of you had mothers who actually made your clothes? A lot of mothers, especially back when this was written, back in the 1960s or around that time, a lot of mothers back then did know how to sew. Many mothers today don't. But back then, yeah, they knew how to sew. But most of them wouldn't actually be making clothes. They might, fix them, sew a button on a shirt. If there's a rip, they might sew a patch on a pair of clothes, something like that. But they're not going to actually make clothes. So this is a really dedicated mother. So this is a good mother. She actually made his jeans. She sewed my new blue jeans. But his father, my father was a gambling man down in New Orleans. So his father was a gambling man. That means he gambled a lot. In other words, played poker or played cards, probably lost a lot of money. That's usually what happens when you gamble. If you're gambling, you have to be very lucky to win money. So you're probably losing money. So his father is out there losing all the family's money. All right, so we move on. But remember what we said at the beginning. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God, I know I'm one. So he's probably following in his father's footsteps. He's probably gambling too, and drinking, hanging out with prostitutes, things like that. So he's probably living a bad life. Okay, so we get to the next line. Now the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk. The only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drunk. Okay, so the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk. A trunk is like a big box, which in the old times, most people don't travel with these anymore, but in the old times you might travel with where you'd pack your stuff. It's kind of like a suitcase, but it's more like a box. But it's the same idea. You pack your stuff in and you travel with it. So basically it's saying that the gambler just needs whatever to pack his stuff in because he's going to travel around. So the gambler really has no home. So again, this is a bad thing. Doesn't have a home to go home to, doesn't have a family. And remember, we're talking about this boy who's talking about his father and his mother. So this is not a good thing. because he just said his father was a gambling man. And he's also said that he's involved in the same stuff. So this isn't good. We're talking about our family. Him, his father, his mother. And he's talking about how a gambler doesn't really have a family. All he needs is his suitcase and his trunk. And the only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drunk. That line just basically means that when he is actually drunk. There are other versions to this song. There's one version which says when he's on a trump, which means when he's winning. But most versions say when he's on a drunk, and that means when he's actually drunk. So those are kind of two almost opposite things, winning versus being drunk. But I guess if you're drunk, you don't even realize you're losing at that point. So I guess it's kind of the same thing in a way. So basically, in either case, you're not really aware of the bad things that are happening. So the only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drunk. So in other words, when he's just clueless, just doesn't care about anything. So again, kind of a sad song. You know, the only time you're happy is when you don't care. Yeah, that's kind of sad. Because what that means, if you really think about that, is that there's nothing that's actually making you happy. You're always sad, and the only time you end up being happy is because you just don't care about anything. So yeah, pretty sad song. All right, and we move on. Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. So again, it's saying, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done. So again, we're back to the beginning of the song where he admits that he's going down the same road his father did. He's spending his life in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. So he's gambling, drinking, going around with prostitutes, all that sort of stuff. Not good. Living a bad life. But he's trying here to make things better. He's telling people, he's telling mothers to tell their children not to do this. He's trying to help people avoid this. All right, we continue on. I got one foot on the platform and the other foot on the train. I'm going back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. All right, so what does this mean? This line here, these couple of lines here is a little bit confusing. It sounds like, though... Okay, so what this sounds like here, if you're going to try to interpret this song, I've told you many times in the past on this show that many singers leave songs open for interpretation. And in fact, that's why some of the lines in this song have been changed. Like the line about when he's on his trump or when he's on a drunk. That line. It's different in different versions of the song. So, if we're going to try to interpret these lines here. Okay, we got one foot on the platform, one foot on the train. It sounds like he's uncertain. He's trying to make a decision. So now he's saying he's going back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. All right, so that line is a little confusing because the House of the Rising Sun is in New Orleans, so I'm not sure what it means when he says he's going back to New Orleans. When you say you're going back somewhere, it means you're returning there. From the way this song sounds, it sounds like he's already in New Orleans. Maybe a different part of New Orleans because he's at the House of the Rising Sun. And now he's going back to his home in New Orleans, which is what this sounds like. The reason it sounds like that is because it says to wear that ball and chain. Okay, so that line, that's a very classic line in American English. Maybe British English as well, I'm not sure, since this is a British band. I'm not quite as sure about that, but maybe. I don't know if it's common in British English or if they copied it from American English, because this song is about New Orleans, so even though they're a British band, they may have taken this from American English. I'm not sure. But the ball and chain line, when you talk about your ball and chain, it usually means your wife. It's not a very good positive thing to say. When you talk about your wife as your ball and chain, a ball and chain literally is what prisoners used to have attached to their legs. It kept them from running away if they were put on work duty outside the prison. So sometimes they would work on roads, for example. They'd help with constructing roads. And to make sure they wouldn't run away, they would have a ball and chain attached to their leg. The ball was literally a ball, but it was made of metal, so it was big and very heavy, so you couldn't run with it. You couldn't run away. So when we talk about ball and chain in this song, we're not talking about being in prison, but it's a negative thing about being married. Like, oh, you lose all your freedom because you have a wife. So your wife doesn't let you go out with your friends. She doesn't let you go out to drink. She doesn't let you do all these things. So we have one foot on the platform, one foot on the train. So he's debating, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So he decides he's going to go back home to his wife. And the way the song is worded, that's not necessarily a good thing. He's kind of just resigned to that. It's not good. Just going to go back and live his life with his wife. And the song makes it sound like, he's just giving up on the other life. The life of gambling and partying and all of that. He's just giving up on that and going back to his wife. And it's not really necessarily a good thing. So again, it's a pretty sad song. Pretty sad song. But it's intended, again, to be positive. We have that line again going back to, "Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done." So this is kind of a song about what not to do. Don't live your life like this. Be happy. Live a better life. All right, so then the song ends with the same thing we've heard before right at the beginning. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God, I know I'm one. So that's the same thing we started with at the beginning of the song, which is a nice way, musically, for the song to go. We end with the same way we began. All right, so that's what this song is about. It's a very sad song, but it has a positive meaning behind it. It's a sad song about this young man who has this terrible father. His father was a gambling man down in New Orleans. The only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk. The only time they're satisfied is when they're on a drunk. So his father's this terrible guy, and now he is doing the same thing. He learned from his father, so now he's doing the same thing. But there's still a positive message behind it. Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. So misery means you feel terrible. It's not good. So he's telling you you're going to not feel good if you're spending your life in the house of the rising sun. That's the house of gambling, prostitution, drinking, partying. So he's saying that's misery. That's miserable. You're not going to be happy. So he's telling the mothers to try to help their children avoid that. So it's a sad song, but with a positive message. It's about what not to do. The song is sad, 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 so sad, but it's saying, don't do this. Don't live your life like this. So it's a positive message. We've had a lot of songs like that, actually, that talk about the sadness of their life, but they're telling you how to make it better. They're telling you what not to do or what you should do instead in some of them. It's the same thing here. We have a sad song. This guy has a miserable, terrible life in the house of the rising sun. So he's telling you, don't do that. All right, that's it for this song. So I would recommend you check out more from the Animals. I always recommend you check out more from any of the bands I introduce to you. Usually I do give you some songs, though. But this time I'm not going to. They really don't have any other huge hits that I can tell you to, go listen to this, go listen to that. But they do have a lot of minor hits, like I told you before. Songs that were pretty popular. So it's not like this is their only good song. No, they have lots of good songs. It's just that, it's hard for me to tell you, oh yeah, listen to this, listen to that. So just go into YouTube. Do a search on The Animals. See what comes up. Go listen to more of their songs. All right. Like I said, they have enough of them so that they're actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They are a Hall of Fame band. So they have a lot of good songs. Go check them out. Thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. Please stay with us and make sure you tune back in next week where I will bring you another great song. Also, do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Musical, music.